Welcome back to the Kyle Olson Show. Last week I had Eric Isaki on the program to talk about why he's running for Congress in the 11th District, which covers portions of Wayne and Oakland counties. Joining me today is Carmelita Greco, who is also running to ultimately take on Congresswoman Haley Stevens in November. So Carmelita, first of all, thanks for joining me, but why are you running for Congress?
Well, I'm running for Congress because I'm concerned about what's happening in our nation right now. Churches being closed, mandatory lockdowns, silencing speech, riots, and really what I believe is an overall global socialist agenda. I'm a mother of three, and I don't want my kids to grow up in a socialist America that will affect their freedoms and affect them to be higher taxed.
So what are some ways that you see we're sort of moving towards a socialist America?
Well, I think we can see this right now. I mean, what we see is 60% of our youth, if not more right now, believe that socialism is the right way to go. Mm-hmm. And I've just had many conversations with, as a former financial consultant, some of my clients were fleeing Venezuela, and I heard their stories and also personal friends from Bulgaria and Eastern Europe, and the type of suppression that happens under socialism, as well as economically, how it affects the economy when the government tries to take over personal business. I think we're seeing a level of that happen right now with the COVID lockdowns. So it's the government ultimately controlling some of our daily activities and how we run business, deciding what businesses are essential and what businesses are not essential.
So why do you think kids, you mentioned Venezuela and what's happening there, and I can pretty much guarantee you students, whether it's in K-12 schools or colleges and universities, are not learning about what's going on in Venezuela. So do you think that the students today, it's a matter of ignorance, or they're sort of being sold this bill of goods in schools that, communism and socialism and, all of those things, that's the way to go? What is the root of it?
Absolutely. I think it's in school and it's also through our media. They're being pushed, I believe, an agenda that's a globalist socialist agenda. And the media has put a color coding over socialism. And what we see is that socialism has caused the deaths over 100 million people. So they're not telling people the truth. They're not talking about what's happened when freedoms are suppressed under socialism. Mm-hmm. And they're getting half truth, half of the story. So they're saying, oh, well, we'll get education paid for, we'll get health care, but they're not understanding the full story and how the oppression that happens when the government takes over private businesses.
Right. So Eric Isaki sent out a mailer claiming that you're a fake Republican and anti-Trump. What's your response to that?
Yeah, actually, I think he sent out 4 of them, and probably totaling $60,000. But really, Eric Isaki, he's using lies and manipulation because he doesn't want to run on his own merit, and that's really what I'm seeing. This is my first time even running in the political realm, and this is exactly why good people do not run, because it's lies and manipulation that other candidates put out. I was leading in the polls and running a strong, honest campaign. And it's these kind of attacks that come towards somebody like myself that's running a strong, honest campaign. So to me, it shows his character. It shows that he's willing to do anything it takes to win and is losing a level of his integrity. I'm more concentrating on the issues, and that's the kind of candidate that I am.
Are you anti-Trump?
Absolutely not. I voted for President Trump in 2016.
How would you say you compare to President Trump in terms of stances on the important issues?
Well, as a financial consultant, I'm a strong voice for the economy. I believe in cutting taxes. He's done an amazing job with cutting corporate taxes down to I think 21%. I'm a biblical conservative. He's been a strong voice for families. He's been a strong voice for pro-life, and just also a champion for religious freedom all over the world, even in China. Mm-hmm. I'm also somebody that's had a small business, unlike Eric Isaki, where I have employed people and I've had a business.
Mm-hmm. If you were elected, and I talked to Matt Boyle, one of the editors at Breitbart News last week, about sort of a breakdown of all of the districts that President Trump won in 2016 that are currently held by Democrats, and the Michigan 11th is one of those districts. And so the numbers that we ran through, I think, is really sort of positive in terms of the prospects for Republicans to retake the majority. So if you were in the majority in Congress, and you were able to help President Trump, but you also, have your own initiatives, what would some of those initiatives and focuses be if you were in the Congress?
Well, I would like to pass a freedom bill. Right now, you have people that are social media that is oppressing our freedom of speech. So I think it's very important to secure our constitutional freedoms. I'm against mandatory vaccines, which I've seen that Mr. Psaki has wrote an article that he's very pro-vaccine, and he also has not signed the Michigan for vaccine choice. There was a questionnaire that went out. He did not sign this questionnaire, and it gives voters the ability to know where he stands on vaccines. So I'm against mandatory vaccines, but Psaki's not being honest about it. I really also do not agree with mandatory masks as well. And people are being fired right now for sharing their political views. Those are all issues that I would tackle in a freedom bill. That's one of my top issues, but also I'm a strong advocate for business and empowering entrepreneurs. I would love to bring manufacturing and trade back into high schools. I think students need other options, and they're not getting that right now.
So let's take two aspects of that freedom bill. There was a hearing this week in the House, in the Judiciary Committee on with big tech, and it was Facebook and Amazon, and Twitter wasn't there for some reason, but others were. Google was another one, and there's a major concern on social media, but then also on Google with censorship, whether it's silencing voices that are sort of contrarian opinions to the progressive mindset, or it's, just sort of troublemakers like Breitbart, for example. What role do you think the Congress should play in all of that?
Well, we need to make sure that there's fair speech and that freedom of speech is not censored. I believe any public traded company should make sure that that they're not censoring free speech. So I think we can ultimately protect freedom of speech by enacting a law that would prevent censorship on these large social media platforms.
Well, and it seems to me, because what you'll hear from Zuckerberg and the others is they say, well, we think that there shouldn't be terrorist activity. Well, obviously, and they say that there shouldn't be harassing or threatening activity. But those sorts of things are already outlawed. So it seems to me if those platforms would simply follow the law and not create their own rules, which tend to go against conservatives and not progressives, it seems like that's the way to go. And so, would you envision regulations from, say, the Trump administration or potentially a Biden administration, or do you think that should be codified in law?
I would say certain regulations just to ensure. One of the things that's happening right now are the fact checkers. You have something that's posted, and if it doesn't agree with the liberal agenda, they send a fact checker to debunk the truth.
Right.
And the same, actually, Psaki sent the same thing to me. He had the Free Press that was clearly siding with his point of view, and sent a fact checker that said, "Hey, we're siding with Psaki on this." Mm-hmm. So I think it's important that in order to have freedom of speech and in order to get to the truth, you need to limit these fact checkers. So I think a level of law or regulation around that.
Well, and of course, the Detroit Free Press is not exactly a bastion of conservatism. So
exactly, it's not. And I think any candidate that's endorsed by the press, by the local press in general, like Psaki was endorsed, you really have to understand that they're not a true conservative. And then if you're getting endorsements by liberals, you're not a true conservative.
Right. Carmelita Greco, she will be on the ballot this Tuesday in the 11th District, in which covers portions of Wayne and Oakland counties. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
This is the Kyle Olson Show. We'll be right back.